Coming up on this episode of Strong Place.
The guy, he's like, I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
And there was so many times in that moment where I could have given up. I could have got mad. I could have been whatever. But I just kept like, God, I know you got me in this. And so what happened is I said, all right, what is it that you want me to see? Like, I've never been this still. I've never been this quiet. Like, my wife had to go to work. My son had to go to school. And so it's just me and God.
Mm-hmm.
And he showed me the silliest thing. It was pickleball.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Strong Place. I'm Ayo Johnson, Executive Director of Mental Health America of Central Carolinas. And do me a favor, we're trying to get the word out and help reduce the stigma around discussing mental health and being able to talk about it openly. So if you enjoyed this episode, please hit that like button. Also subscribe to our channel. It does help us and it doesn't cost you anything. And turn on those notifications for us. And I am so excited about today's episode because I have the distinct pleasure and honor of interviewing MHA's publicist, the Jay Hill. I'm going to call him his whole government, Jelani. I don't know his middle name, but I'm called by his whole government name, Jelani Hill of the BrandUScript PR Agency. And he has been such a great partner to Mental Health America. And so I'm excited about this interview today. So welcome to Strong Place on this side of the camera, Jay.
I know. Like, is this a conflict of interest for me to be on the show?
And that's why I had to sign that form.
Oh, okay. Thank you for having me, man. This is cool.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And, a couple of weeks ago when, I asked you to be on, I said, I don't know why, but God is telling me to tell you it's time. So I'm really looking.
He shared that with you?
He did.
Oh, I was like, Lord, you weren't supposed to tell her that yet. That's what I said.
Yeah, that is definitely what she said. And so I'm excited because I think there's a part of your story that a lot of people don't know and that I don't know. Yeah. And God didn't tell me the story, but he did tell me to tell you that it was time. So I'm really excited about our interview today.
Yeah.
So as CEO of the BrandUScript PR Agency, Jay is dedicated to delivering innovative and holistic public relations and digital marketing solutions. With over 2 decades of experience spanning multiple industries, including automotive, spirits, legal, energy, food and beverage, marketing, music, fashion, beauty, sports, philanthropy, telemarketing, the list goes on and on. I think you'll get the picture. Jay is the man. If you are in the Charlotte area, you do not know the Jay Hill, you need to get to know him. And so we're going to get into all the things that you do as part of BrandUScript. So again, Jay, welcome to Strong Place.
Yeah, thank you. I think my mama wrote that.
Okay.
So that's all right.
So you're familiar enough to know, but you know that we always start off every episode just talking about your personal mental health story. So tell our audience, tell me, what is your personal mental health story?
I've been trying to figure out where God would take me relative to this. And he was just like, just tell your story. And so the first thing I do want to say, I'm a Charlotte native. I know people like to say, oh, you're a unicorn. But I'm from Charlotte. I'm from West Boulevard, born and raised. I like to say I was refined in Atlanta. So I lived 10 years in Atlanta. But man, I grew up on West Boulevard in the 80s and 90s. And when you're 5'5", respectively, and black and from the hood, it's tough. And so for a long time, as far as my mental health journey, it started quick. So I was like, let me protect my peace early. I had to learn to protect myself really early. I had to learn how to joke and take a joke. It took a long time for me to be able to process, just being who I was. And so I had a great childhood. Like, I'm gonna be really honest, I'm a blessed guy. I had, both of my parents are loving, wonderful parents. I grew up, I didn't realize until lately how much of a legend my dad is in the city, in the city of Charlotte. I grew up working for his business in the summers. He has a sign company called Hill Lettering Service. And so I remember when I was like 7 or 8, we came home from church one day and I wrote up this contract on those old typewriters where you're like, and so it said, I, Jelani Hill, will work for Hill Lettering Service, and for $3.15. And I did the little dot, like abbreviated lines or whatever. So, and I signed it, and I took it into my parents' room. My mom just fell out laughing. And my dad, he didn't sign a contract that day, and he didn't pay me $3.15, but he did let me work for him. And so that's kind of how my life went. Like I grew up, loving my dad. He's super cool. Luckily, him and my parents, both of my parents are still alive. They're 80 years old now. And so I grew up really, really spoiled. This juxtaposition, like I kind of compare it to Kendrick Lamar. His first album was Good Kid, Mad City. And so I grew up in Behringer. If you're from Charlotte, Behringer Woods, which is right across from Stratford Y, it was like sandwiched in the hood, like in between two hoods. So Dalton Village, the legendary, infamous Dalton Village, was on one side, and then you had Sandhurst and Parker Heights and all of these places, which are named after amazing people like Charles Parker in Charlotte, but it was crime ridden when I was growing up. And so I had friends that were selling drugs, friends that were going off to jail, friends that started getting killed and stuff like that. And so by the time I got to high school, I was like, bruh, like, what are we gonna do? And so my grades weren't good enough to get into a really good school. So I saw the DeVry commercial on TV. I was like, you know what? I'll go into the A. And so that's how I got to Atlanta.
Oh.
And so I told my parents, I was like, hey, I want to go to Atlanta. I got into DeVry, the recruiter is coming. And so I ended up going to Atlanta and graduated in 3 or 4 years. I think it was 4 years. And I told my mom at graduation, I am never coming back to Charlotte. And that's how I kind of became a magazine guy. I remember being on sets with Lil Jon and the East Side Boys and all that stuff. And so I had a wonderful time in Atlanta. I was there for 10 years. And then, somebody like me who's really close, I have a close family, but my dad is my hero. And so he gets sick in 2005. We're at Disney World on a family vacation. And what's crazy is that, you're walking back to the car and he couldn't make it. And so he sat down on a bench and we didn't know what was going on. And so we go on and get the car, come back and get him, and comes to find out, talking about men's health and things of that nature, which is a story that I'd like to get into relative to myself. He was losing blood and we didn't know it. And so once we got back to Charlotte, he was diagnosed with cancer, and that's what made me move back to Charlotte. I wasn't coming back to Charlotte. And so I was just spending time with my family during the holidays. And so he did radiation for about 6 months. My best friend, Orlandis Gilmore, who's from Clinton Park here in Charlotte, I was talking to him on the phone and telling him, like, yo, man, my dad's sick, bro. And he was like, it's time to come home. And that was like the first time I felt like I was being obedient. Like, I felt like God was like speaking to me through him. And so I come home, I hold down the business. I meet my wife 3 months later. And we've been together every day for the last getting close to 18, 19 years now.
Oh, wow.
We've been married for 15. And so my dad likes to joke. He's like, I'm the reason you met your wife. And so that was that. And then I go on and start doing my thing here in Charlotte. I start another magazine here in Charlotte called Celebrity Power Magazine. But my life really changed about around 2020 or so. I grew up, my dad's sister, her name is, well, I don't say her name, but my dad's sister has a son. I will say his name is Kiba Hill. And, you have that family member or friend or somebody who you just wake up one day and they're there. He was like my brother. And one day I was like, God was telling me to just go to Atlanta because he moved to Atlanta after me. And he asked me to, God was like, go get Kiba. And so I go to Atlanta and I was like, hey, man, it's time to come home. And he was dealing with some things, just a lot. And I was like, I don't know why God is telling me to do this, but he is. And he had lived in Atlanta for 20 years. I had been there for 10 years. And so when I moved, he stayed for another 10 years. And so I got him here. He stayed through Christmas. He stayed through the top of the year. And, his whole family couldn't believe it. He has 2 younger sisters and a brother. And I didn't know it at the time, but God was working through me to get him to come back home because he died close to 3 years later. And he's like my brother.
Mm.
And man, it was crazy because like I always say, I feel like I'm so spoiled
Right.
because I had never had anything or anyone that close to me die. And so what's crazy, it felt like, it's hard being a father. And, I hate to say this, like, I don't want to sound like it's hard for a black man out here, but I remember literally wiping the tears out of my eyes,
Mm-hmm.
posting about his death, right? And I had to wipe my tears away because I had to go help plan his funeral. Like, I had to go help raise money for his funeral.
Right.
So I didn't even get a chance to mourn him.
Right.
Like, I was going through so much in my life at that time. And so that was already a difficult time as a business owner. But then he passes away and I didn't even get a chance to mourn my brother.
Right.
I had to snap out of it and be like, okay, what do we need? What do we need to do?
So you're that nucleus for your family? Are you that person that tends to be like the focal point or holds everything down? Was that an external pressure for you to handle everything, or is that like a pressure you put on yourself to make sure that you could bury him the way you would want to?
The reason this is a pivotal point, well, I'll say this. This was a pivotal point in my life. It was the first time I had anyone that close to me pass away,
Mm-hmm.
period, right? But it was like a changing of the guard in my family. It was, I remember at the repast,
Mm-hmm.
my cousin Kiba, his little sister, his younger sister said, and she gave me the greatest compliment, but it was sad at the same time that it was true. She says, "You're like your dad now." So the way my father took care of his brothers and was there for his sister and was the go-to person
Right.
for the family,
Mm-hmm.
it was my turn.
Okay. So you
And
naturally took that on when
yeah,
your cousin passed away.
well, I felt like I owed it to him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it's not like he died with a lot.
Right.
He was incredible though. You know what I mean? He like, we're polar opposites. He's like, people don't even believe we're cousins. I'm short and dark skinned. He's tall and light skinned. I played football. He played basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing we shared is, like, I have to say it, like, we were both charismatic.
Mm-hmm.
But just a wonderful, fun spirit, free spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been very conservative.
Mm-hmm.
People don't really know that about me. I'm very conservative. I care about where I'm from and how I'm looked at. I
Mm-hmm.
guess that's what makes, me good at being a publicist as well.
Right.
But it was a pivotal moment in my life where it was like, okay, it's my turn now. It's my turn to take care of the family. It's
Mm-hmm.
my turn to take care of my parents. I'm the parent now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to answer your question, yes, I felt like I had to do it because I wanted to make sure that I respected him. And fortunate or unfortunately, they were looking at me to do it. And so I had to step up and do it.
Had you already started the agency at this point?
Yes.
You were already into what you were doing, or were you still running the magazine? I know you mentioned that you had a magazine.
Yeah. So I stopped the magazine. I've been in a PR agent, or I've been in public relations close to 15 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I started out with attorney Ken Harris. That's my big brother. Amazing attorney. He took me in, and I feel like I was like a little stray cat. He just took me in off the street and say, "Hey, what I mean, come work with me." And I was like, "Cool." So yeah, I was a longtime publicist at this time. But the reason that was such a pivotal moment was because I didn't even get a chance to mourn him.
Right.
And the effect of that, I feel like, was in 2023, 2 years later, I get sick and had never been sick.
Right.
And so I was losing all this weight. I lost like close to 50 pounds. And if you're a grown man and you're 158 pounds, like, you need to see what's going on. And
Right. Shay. You need
I'm
to
sorry,
slow
I'm sorry, I'm
down.
sorry, I'm sorry. But yeah, I was dealing with a lot, and I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease.
Oh.
I literally was grinding, you know what I mean? Just year after year, just grinding, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, not taking care of myself, just walking through the pain, walking through like I
Right.
don't have time to stop. I can't stop.
Right.
If I stop, everything's gonna fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
And never realizing I never like mourned like my brother.
Right.
He's my cousin, but he was like my brother.
Right.
And so, man, next thing I know, Christmas of 2023, I remember going shopping because I wait to the last minute to go Christmas shopping. And I lay down and I don't get up until February.
Wow.
I was in the bed the whole January of 2024.
Wow.
Literally in the bed. And
When you say you laid down, were you hospitalized or
no,
this
no,
was at
I
home?
came home. Luckily, I wasn't hospitalized. There's a lot of people who are diagnosed with Crohn's.
Right.
They have to have surgeries and all kinds of stuff. I'm not gonna, but I go shopping on Christmas Eve. I come home. I lay down, and I guess my body was like, "That's it." Like,
Wow.
we
So
can't. I
you
can't.
never even get up Christmas Day.
I get up Christmas Day. I fight through it, and I'm still not telling my family what's going on. The only person that really knew what was happening was my wife.
Okay.
Because I kind of gave her. I said something's going on. I'm losing weight like really fast. Like I was losing weight in like 5-pound clips every week.
Wow.
And so then it got to the point my body was just so weak. I could barely walk up the steps in our house. So I just started staying in our room.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was like that whole month, I finally get diagnosed. I get a colonoscopy. All these things are things that black men need to take care of themselves with, right?
Right.
And so like I'm like the prototype of all the stuff not to do, not going to the doctor, not getting a colonoscopy, not getting rest, the whole nine. And so but the beautiful thing that came out of it is that I'm a person who, you know, I try to stay out of the way, even though people don't really realize that. Like this guy that you see today was born through that pain that happened in January of 2024, where I was in the bed. God showed me all of the great things that he had for me. And I said, you know what, God, if you just, you know how them people say, just get me up out of here. You know, if you just let me get back to where I was, I promise I'll live for you and I'll do everything I can to be the best that I'm supposed to be.
So I want to go back. I'm thinking now, maybe like a decade or whatever.
Yeah.
Because you, at 7 or 8 years old, you write up a contract.
Yeah.
You tell your dad, I'm going to work for Hill Lettering.
Yep.
And
you want to figure out why I didn't work for Hill Lettering?
yeah. And so now, you know, at some point you said Attorney Ken Harris, he takes you in like a stray cat.
Yeah.
Right. But at what point do you tell your dad that you're not going to take over the family business and you make that decision? Because that, I can tell just by the way you talk about your parents and especially your dad that you have such admiration for him. I'm imagining that might have been a difficult conversation, and especially with your cousin saying like you're your dad now, so you man up. You basically become like the pillar of your family.
Yeah.
But at some point, you make the hard decision that business isn't for you. So tell me about like that conversation.
It was one of the hardest decisions of my life. So you're talking about somebody who, like, when I was at graduation, you know, you go to church and you have graduation Sunday, and so you have to go up there and tell your little speech and everything. And I didn't talk about. I remember saying like Michael Jordan is not my hero. My dad, William Hill Jr., is my hero.
Right.
And so I grew up thinking like, I'm gonna get the call one day and I'm gonna go. Like I remember leaving Atlanta and saying like, I'm going. This is happening.
Right.
I'm going home to take over Hill Lettering service. And I was always the one. I was the dad translator. Like if he didn't get along with everybody else in the house, like I knew how to speak to him and understand what he was saying and translate to everyone else. That was the most difficult 2 years that he and I ever had in our relationship. And so it got to the point where it's like, bro, like this is like my best friend and we're like arguing over paint. Like we're arguing over
So
like
you're working in the business.
yes, I'm
But it's
living there because
okay.
he gets healthy.
Right.
So I stay there and then I move out and get my own place. But I'm working every day.
Right.
And so this dynamic is different. Like I'm a 28-year-old young gunner from Atlanta at this time. So like my
So
energy,
you're
I'm
not even
on.
from Charlotte anymore at this point.
I
You're
am
from
an
Atlanta.
AT alien, like literally. And so tell me what, like,
Right.
huh? And, like, so I'm full of ideas. Like I am maturing into my full self at this point. And he's 65 years old. Like he's like, I'm ready to go sit down somewhere. Like, so all of these great, amazing ideas that I had, he was like, bruh. And so at the time I didn't understand it. I was very frustrated. I
Right.
thought it was, like, what's the problem?
Because you wanted to take the business a different
Yes.
direction or
Yes, I wanted
expand
to
it.
dominate. It was
Okay.
my natural energy to I want to take
So we
over the
get
world.
along.
Yes. And now he looking at me like I'm speaking Mandarin. Like, what are you talking about right now?
Right.
And
Just run my little business the way I
Yeah.
taught you how to run it.
yes, I taught you how to do this. Now you want to tell me. And so we bumped heads in a positive way, but I complained a lot. I spoke to my wife and my best friend often. And so then I opened a second magazine. So in Atlanta, I had a magazine. We closed it down when I moved back to Charlotte. In Charlotte, I opened a magazine while I was working with my dad.
Okay.
And so now I'm getting pulled in two directions. And one day we just had a real heart to heart. And he just was like, yo, I don't want this business to hold you back. He became a father and not a
Okay.
business partner anymore and said,
Okay.
your gifts may be different and beyond this moment or this business. And he gave me the freedom. He gave me the blessing because I think he knew how difficult
Right.
it was for me to just
He
leave.
discerned that you were frustrated and your heart really wasn't in it.
Yeah, and I was also, getting close to getting married. Like, so I was at that point where I needed to figure it out. You know what I mean? And so he was like, he understood. And I wasn't saying that, but he, as a father, understood. And so that's when I said, okay, I got to figure something out. And then I met Ken. I think I knew Ken by that time. And so I was like, you know what? I need to look into this public relations thing. And that's when I leaned into it.
So how did you learn about public relations? Like, was that something you learned in Atlanta or like,
I'm a
because
hustler, Ayo. What's up now?
well, that we know. But that we know.
Yeah, so what's crazy is that I talk a lot about Attorney Ken Harris. He's one of these folks who they speak life into you. So before you even know what you're doing, he tells you like, this is who you are.
Right.
And
I
so
know Attorney Ken Harris.
yeah, he's amazing, man. And so Ken would he said, hey, I have this project with Mike Winans Jr. He was the son of one of the famous Winans family, right? And so he's like, I need somebody to help do PR for it. And so like I knew about PR because I got pitched as a magazine publisher all the time. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. And that's how I got introduced to PR. And so for a few years, I was just out here trying to figure it out. I was like, how you write a press release?
Right. No AI back then.
No chat GPT, boy. Right, listen, if they had chat back then, I would have killed them. Excuse me. I would have did my thing. And so that's how I got into PR. And then I grew in it. I remember flying to Puerto Rico on like my anniversary one year, and I read the book on Dan Edelman, who Edelman is the largest PR agency in the world. And I started understanding what PR really is and public relations really is. And that book changed my life. That was in 2013. And when I came back, I said, okay, I'm gonna stop being a hustler with PR. Like, okay, I got a couple of friends over here that got a magazine. Don't put you in that, right? And I really studied the craft. And so after that, that's when I really went full-fledged in it. In 2016, because Ken and I did a lot, but I had these aspirations of building a really big agency. And so for a long time, I would pitch clients all over the country. I would do media runs in Atlanta and Houston, Chicago, and places like that. And so that was another time where I had to make a decision where Ken was somebody who was a pivotal person in my life, and I had to say I'm doing something different. And he gave me his blessing. He understood what I was doing. He supported me. I was there for 6 years, and so I went on and did my thing.
So as a man, like navigating all of these spaces, thinking you're gonna go do one thing, you plant roots in an ATL, then you got to come back, you rise up, you become this pivotal person in your family. And back then, we didn't really talk a lot about mental health
Yeah.
openly.
Yeah.
We didn't really identify that was what those things. But if you think back on it, how do you think as a man you were navigating your mental health? Were you tuned into it? Were you thinking about it? Or you just were figuring it out kind of as you were going along?
Yeah, definitely figuring it out as I was going along. One thing that became apparent is that, when you're from certain areas, you have certain backgrounds and things of that nature, you're really driven by ego.
Mm-hmm.
You're driven by what people think of you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like me, you traumatized from being picked on when you're a kid, like you learn
Right.
how to protect yourself and put up boundaries and things that try to avoid those things. All those things led me to a point where when I was sick, because there was times where I had like wonderful ideas and all these things that I would just put aside because I was like, you know what? Somebody's gonna think I'm lame to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Somebody from where I'm from, that's not cool. Or because I'm a man, I shouldn't do that or whatever. And so it finally, when you get sick, it's crazy that like you hear people say that, like, man, they get sick and then it changes their whole outlook on life. That's what happened to me. And I had to literally remove my ego. My ego blocked me from so many blessings. And this past year has been nothing but tests. And I'm proud of myself from passing tests that have been in front of me. Where every time I've gotten a chance to lean into my ego, that I was like, and I was thinking one day I was driving down the street. I want to tell you this real quick. God was like, all it takes is somebody to disrespect you a little bit. Just a little bit, and you'll burn the whole thing down.
Wow.
Years of a relationship, opportunities, clients. If you get somebody to just say something a little wrong, or somebody's trying to little bro you or whatever. And I was like, really? And I thought about all of the situations where it's like, man, just because they said something or I processed something
Right.
wrongly, that I was like,
I can attest to that. I have done that, definitely.
Yeah. And I was
processed something wrong and just, blew something up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, the enemy is tricking me. The enemy is tricking me. He knows that's my weakness. He knows that's all it takes for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so this past year and a half, like navigating the city of Charlotte, and I'm going to say this, I'm not one to kiss behinds. I'm not one to be disrespected.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I don't want to do anything. I'm just saying, like, I will cut my situation off and go and do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Me being willing to not let my ego get in the way of what God has for me on the other side of it. And every time I was like, God, I know that's you. Normally, God, you know how I would act. And he's like, I got you. And all of those situations have turned into like amazing opportunities.
So I'd love to hear men, especially black men, talk about like God speaking to them and really leading them.
Yes.
Right. And I think that we need more men that openly talk about that. That a lot of times they're not doing things in their own strength and their own power.
That's right.
But they're doing it because they're being led by God. This month and a half or so, I guess, that you are basically in the bed.
Yes.
January 2023.
Yes.
Basically saying the whole, and God is kind of just downloading.
January 2024. Yes.
Like downloading on you. I would imagine you lay down one way and you get up a different way.
Yeah.
Right? How did you navigate those spaces of shifting the person that people knew before Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, and the person that you are when you emerge February?
The first thing I'll say is it was painful. Like, there was nights, man, I cried. People don't know how much pain I was in. Like I was going to I'm saying this. I went to the bathroom literally 20 times a day,
Mm.
literally, and it was painful. But I heard someone say when you're going through pain and in those moments when you lean into God, that's a sacred place.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's a sacred place
Yep.
where God, He's like, I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
And there was so many times in that moment where I could have given up, I could have got mad, I could have been whatever, but I just kept like, God, I know you got me in this. And so what happened is I said, all right, what is it that you want me to see? Like I've never been this still. I've never been this quiet. Like my wife had to go to work, my son had to go to school, and so it's just me and God.
Mm-hmm.
And he showed me the silliest thing. It was pickleball. Cause I was like
Yeah.
joking around at Christmas, like black men don't have a hobby besides like drinking Hennessy or playing basketball.
Oh no, you didn't.
And I was like,
no.
and so first I was like, yo, let's get some hats like Cam Newton and smoke cigars. And we laughed about that. Like, no, let's not do that. And God gave me pickleball. And I was like, pickleball? And so my wife comes upstairs and I was like, you know what? I think I want to learn how to play pickleball. And she's like, really? I was like, yeah. And so, I was too sick to go play pickleball. So around February, my son, my wife, and I, and my son's best friend and his family. Shout out to Raymond Ballard, Siobhan Ballard, Trey, and Simone. I was 160 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
We go out there and I can't even play. I just had to sit and watch them. And they couldn't even get the ball over the net. But God had given me a download. He had shown me Mr. Pickleball Hill. He had shown me how I'm going to tour all over the country, going to pickleball courts and do content. He showed me, I got to tell you this, but the power mixer. I'll come back to that.
Yeah, we
but
definitely talk about the power mixer.
he showed me what life would be for me as a pickleball influencer. And he dropped it in my spirit. It was enough to make me look ahead and be excited about something and not just focus on the pain. And the most beautiful thing happened. Like, we play pickleball every week now. And I'm the last to come off the court because I remember that day I couldn't play. And it's the stupidest thing. I'm sorry. It's the silliest thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's not silly, though.
It's my connection to God. It's God winking at me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And the other thing was Power Mixer. This is the third iteration of the Power Mixer. The Power Mixer is a networking event that I've done for close to 20 years now. I did it in Atlanta. I did it in Charlotte 14 years ago. But when I was sick, God was like, it's time to bring back the Power Mixer. And there's been so many lessons with the Power Mixer because I've had to trust God the whole way. I invested, you invested, you and I invested in the Power Mixer last year.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And God was like, I got you. Don't doubt me. Get out of the way. And so this past year has all been about me removing my ego and getting out of the way and letting God do his thing in my life. And so it's been great.
Can I say, and I literally just heard this so clearly, the day that we met, right? We met, I was late to getting to the Tuesday morning forum. Shout out to Miss Jackie for not killing me that day, because she almost did. Yeah. But I'm sitting down there, on the panel, and I see you and Alanda sitting out there, and I'm only about 4 months in to my role as executive director, so I think it was probably my first panel I had been invited to. I didn't know what to expect, and afterwards, I'm paraphrasing, but afterwards you came up and said, "You and I gotta have coffee. We gotta talk." But I remember looking out at you in the audience, and I almost can recall the moment I think like a light bulb or something went off, and you where I could see you looking at me like, I'm gonna work with her. I don't
Mm,
know, and I don't know. I would love to hear from your perspective how that moment went for you. But I just remember you saying something to me afterwards, and I had never worked with a PR agency before, but I think we met for coffee maybe a couple weeks later,
yeah,
and then BrandUScript Agency became a part of MHA's team to
yeah,
get the word out.
yeah.
You meet so many people, right?
Mhm.
How do you make a decision when you're going to approach a client? Because I think that we both have really like dialed into the Holy Spirit when
Yes.
Holy Spirit just kind of tells us
Hmm.
that that's a person that you need to connect with.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that?
So a couple things. I used to in 20 when I left Attorney Ken's office in 2017, I used to just scroll on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And if I saw your picture, like I could feel like, no, that's somebody that you
Mm-hmm.
should work with. And I built my whole roster in 2017 doing that. Just scrolling through Instagram, looking at pictures and videos of folks, and just feeling the energy that was someone that I could help.
Wow.
The story that you don't know about Tuesday Morning Forum is back in May of 2024. I graduated from Leadership Charlotte, which is a cool cohort here in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
I go to a funeral for my aunt, and I speak at her funeral because my family, there's a rift in my family between my mom and her sister, and they haven't spoken in 20 years. And at that funeral, I spoke up, and I just felt something to speak
Mm.
and tell them that I missed everybody, that I missed the dinners and everything that we had together as a family, right? And that was the moment where I felt like I was stepping into the fullness of who I was supposed to be in my family.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, okay, I'm gonna say it, I'm the leader of the family, and it's time for us
Mm-hmm.
to stop this. What's crazy is that I met someone about a week later, and the person says to me, "Why are you so humble? Why are you in the back of the room? When are you gonna start being what God has called you to be?"
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the person was like, I was scared, like the way they were talking, like, because it was like, killing me softly, like he was singing my whole life, like he was doing it,
Right.
and I can't believe I'm sharing this, but it was such a pivotal moment because I knew it was God saying it's time for you to be everything that I need you to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing was obedience. And so I meet Winston Robinson at a Creative Mornings Charlotte event here in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
And he and I get to meet. And we sit down, we had coffee at Archive Charlotte. And before I met him, I'm looking on his Instagram, and the craziest thing happens. So my dad he grew up as an artist, and he talked about this guy named Tommy Robinson all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking on Winston's Instagram. I'm like, why Mr. Robinson on on Winston's Instagram holding this child? I'm like, oh my God, that's his dad. So people don't know this. My dad, William Hill Jr., and Tommy Robinson grew up knowing each other and practicing art. Mr. Robinson goes off to Europe and becomes this famous artist. My dad becomes one of the pioneers of the sign business in Charlotte. And so they have this parallel life. So here are Winston and I
Mm-hmm.
coming together 40 years later.
Wow.
Now we're both doing these amazing things in Charlotte. I meet with Winston. He says, come to Tuesday Morning Forum. Normally, I'm not going.
Right,
But
it's early. Or
that's one thing. It's
Right.
8:30 in the morning. And I'm like, why am I going?
Right.
Orlando's told me, he's like, stop being so transactional.
Mm.
He's like, Charlotte's about relationships. Stop looking for something or to get something from people, right? Because I would say,
ATL.
yes. Oh, he
That's
said it.
yeah, that's
He
it
said it. He
too.
was like, you
Yeah.
got so much Atlanta in you. Like he said, I believe that's getting in the way. And I was like, all right, cool. And so I go to Tuesday Morning Forum, and I said, I'll never miss a week. I think I met you. I don't know if it was that first day. No, Greg Johnson was there the first day. And then I saw you like the second week.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was up there, you were speaking, and you talked about you worked, I believe it was when you said you worked at the Y and used to do some marketing stuff
Mm-hmm.
and for the Y, and you used to write up radio commercials. I remember that. And I said, I'm gonna talk to her. So that moment you saw was that.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell everyone, my obedience to Winston saying go to the Tuesday morning forum, which was like a Friday and it was the next Tuesday, led me to be in that moment and hear you and be obedient to go say something to you. Because that's another thing. I could have not said anything.
Right.
But I was being moved to go speak to you. And then so on and so forth. And that led us to this moment right here.
Yeah. Amen.
Amen. Did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
You did, actually. No, absolutely, you did. And so a light bulb went off for me when you were talking, because recently I was having a meeting at Archive, and this unassuming gentleman is sitting, older gentleman is sitting next to me, and the person that I'm talking to, knows him. And we started talking about art. We're in Archive, there's all this, the art and everything on the walls. And she, starts to like engage with him. I don't know anything, who he is.
Yeah.
And so she's like, "You don't know who that is, do you?" And I said, "Nope." And I'm pretty sure it was Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, he had a white, like a gray mustache. Yeah.
And he has this, I think, has an installation in convention center.
Yes.
2 big installations on both sides of the escalator. And so I said something about him putting something in Archive, or for them in and the person I'm meeting with said they cannot afford him.
Yeah. No, he will tell you that.
She wait. And he says no, they can't afford me. And so she pulls up his stuff and hands me her phone, and I'm like, "Oh,
yeah.
Okay." And he's like, "Yeah, you ever been in the Charlotte Convention Center? And you come up the escalator and you see the things." He was like, "That's my work." And so I literally just started reading like his whole dossier, like while we're sitting there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you just never know
Yeah.
who you were going to meet, who you're in the presence of.
Yeah.
That's why you can't make assumptions about people. So I didn't realize that was Winston's dad.
Yeah, because they don't like play it up a
Right.
thing. Winston is amazing in his own right. And so that's what's cool about it. I'll tell you a cool story. Like for years, I would hear my dad talk about Tommy Robinson. And I didn't know who he was talking about. But he was like, "Yeah, me and Tommy Robinson. And Tommy Robinson, he's an amazing artist, right?" So I go to Tuesday Morning Forum and I ask a question. And I was like, "So yeah, my dad is William Hill Jr. and this, that, and the third." Tommy Robinson turned around. He said, "You look just like your daddy." And so, and he has adopted me ever since. Oh, wow. And so a cool moment was that one day after, like I was picking little Jay up, our son, from Johnson C. Smith for summer camp. We stopped by Archive, and it's Ken Kuntz, Tommy Robinson, and shout out to my guy, Christopher Dennis.
Yeah.
And they're all sitting in there. And my son, Lil Jay, he loves his granddad, right? And he's a little bit of an artist, right? He's a creative. And Tommy Robinson talked about how amazing his granddad was and how his grandfather inspired him to be an artist and how he would skip class to go see William Hill Jr. draw the Charlotte skyline.
Wow.
It was just an amazing, beautiful moment. And so I'm so happy. I'm so proud of myself because everything that people are seeing, people are like, "Man, you on fire, you're everywhere." And it's all because I'm just being obedient. It's all because I'm not letting my ego, I'm not letting the enemy rob me from nothing that God has for me right now.
Amen.
Like every test, I see him trying to take something from me, and I'm not allowing him to do it. Last year, my health was attacked, and I trusted God through it. This year has been relationships, and I'm not falling for it. And so I know that God has me, he has my back, and I'm not going to allow anything to get in the way of that.
Wow. We could go on and on because I
Yes.
feel like we just scratched the surface, but I'm glad that I was obedient when God told me one morning, "Tell Jay I said it's time," right? And so I just want to encourage you because I think, there's probably another shift. I
Yes.
think that God has a lot more in store for you.
Thank you.
And so I really do appreciate you being here as a guest and being on this side of the camera for
Yeah.
change.
See y'all next
sitting
year.
down with me. So tell the audience where they can find you on social media. If anybody's looking for a fabulous PR agent, tell the audience where they can find you.
So Jay Hill, Mr. J. Hill, CEO of the BrandUScript Agency, building the largest agency in the city of Charlotte and beyond. You can hit us up at the Charlotte, I don't know what I'm promoting. I got 100 things to promote right now. All right, the BrandUScript Agency, you can go to thebrainscriptagency.com or brainscriptpr.com. Also, the Power Mixer, thepowermixercot.com. And if you want to follow me, you can go to Mr.J.Hill on Instagram and just search for your boy. I'm here. I'm outside.
Thank you.
With you.
Yes. He be dragging me to all the places. Well, thank you again for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Strong Place. I'm Ayo Johnson, Executive Director. Until next time, and don't forget to please subscribe and hit that like button and turn those notifications on. Thank you for joining us.